Hi, I'm Dr. Alex Manners. I teach horn here at Grand Canyon University, and I'm so glad that you found our video today. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about these 5 all-regional and all-state audition etudes for AMEA. Hopefully you can find some value out of these, and they will help improve your audition experience. With number one is listed as allegretto. But the word that I find most important in the beginning of this is actually underneath the first few notes. It's leggero, and leggero, of course, means lightly. So you want to make sure that this is very lightly done. It should not be heavy. Where the fourth and the fifth notes here are accented. Make sure that you don't play those too heavy so that it comes across as you're just playing way too much. So keep it light. That's an important feature here. Another thing that I want to draw to your attention is halfway through this, when at the end of the second line we have a piano marking, and then the next measure we have mezzo piano. 2 measures after that we crescendo into mezzo forte, and the next to last measure is forte, and the last measure is fortissimo. So hopefully I did that enough in my video to really showcase that. But it's really important to drive this dynamic change through the end of this video so that you're seeing different levels in terms of dynamics. The judges are almost surely going to look for that. And lastly, watch out for articulation overall in this particular etude. You'll notice that we have both staccato accents, and then we have the little dashes that are tenutos that mean basically the opposite of staccato, longer notes. And so you really need to draw attention to each of these and make sure that you're doing something different for each of these. They shouldn't be the same, and that way you're showcasing your ability to play different articulations for the judges. Obviously, notes and rhythms are the most important thing, but all of these extra things like articulations and dynamics are really important in helping the judge to see that you are a complete horn player. With number two is obviously our slow etude here. It's marked on Dante. Its quarter note equals 80 beats a minute. Right underneath the first measure, we have a marking that the composer wants us to do espressivo. So expressive playing is really important here. Legato sounds, really, really important. The composer is also including what we call hairpins, so crescendos and decrescendos up to a forte, back down to mezzo piano. So it's really important that you're showing that you can do both of those things. Don't overdo it, but definitely have what we call peaks and valleys in number two, so that it's like the music is going somewhere. It shouldn't be just like you're playing a bunch of notes in a row. Play phrases, and that's a really important concept here. Also, I do want to notice at the very end of this one, it gets up to fortissimo. So make sure that you're arriving at that fortissimo sound. And then also the rhythm in the next to last measure, we have 2 eighth notes and then a set of eighth note triplets. So make sure da da yet trip up ba. So 1 and triple it 1. So that we're seeing the difference between the eighth notes and the triplets, and they don't sound like the same thing. And even if you go back one beat, we have 16th notes there. So we have 16ths, then eighths, then an eighth note triplet. So make sure that you're playing all of those. It's also kind of tricky at the end playing fortissimo as you're going down the scale. So sometimes it's important to use a little bit more air as you're going down, almost like a crescendo, so that your sound will actually come out as even. So it's important, play towards the end of the song on number 2. With number 3. Number 3 is probably the most tricky one on the first page here just because of the tempo. It's marked at quarter note equals 120 beats a minute. The marking on this one has actually been marcato, which is quite marked, playing with a marked style. So it's almost the opposite of number 1, which we wanted to keep as very light. So this one is a little bit heavier. Bring out the accents, but the accents also shouldn't be you playing as loud as you possibly can. Keep it just a little bit of a ping with your tongue. Dun 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 dun. And that will get what you need it to do. Keep in mind on the 3/8 on this one that the eighth note is steady. So the eighth note from the 2/4 just stays steady. Yum bum 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 ba dum bum ba da 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 da. So when I do this, I actually set my metronome at eighth note equals 240. So it's just counting the eighth note for me, and then I don't have to worry about it when it goes into the 3/8 because the 3/8 I just think 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and so it's the same. One important thing that I will note on this one also is when you get to the end of this etude, the end of the next to last measure has 2 articulated eighth note or 2 articulated 16th notes. Da 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 dum. Don't slow down just like I did there, but make sure that you are tonguing those 2 notes. That's important for the judge, that they hear that you're doing what the piece asks you to do, which is slur 6 16th notes and tongue 2 and then tongue the last one. So that's important, and that's number 3. With number 4, the 2 all-state etudes, the most important thing right off the bat that I'll be honest with you is what I struggled with is the fact that we're in 4 sharps here. And so D sharp is a really important thing. And you play D sharp a whole bunch in this particular etude, at least 6 or 7 times. So make sure that you're doing those and that you're not accidentally playing D naturals. Number 4 is marked giocoso. Giocoso means humorously. So I think you don't want to come across as super serious. It should sound almost whimsical as you play this one. So really aim for something that's kind of a lighter style. I think that's important here. Another thing that you should pay attention to is the dynamics on this one. We have a lot of various dynamics at one spot. In the second line, we start with a piano, and then he has a crescendo poco a poco, so it's gradually getting louder. And then by the end of the second line, it's supposed to be forte. So make sure that you're actually doing that. And then there's another spot in the third line when you go from piano to fortissimo in a really short time frame. So it's important that when you get louder, it doesn't become heavier. Remember, we want to go for a lighter style. But it should get a little bit louder. So make sure that you are increasing air to do that. Just don't let it get too out of hand. And keep in mind, at the end, we have these 16th notes, and there's this weirdly shaped decrescendo or weirdly placed decrescendo here. So make sure it just kind of evaporates into nothing. Yada-da-da-da-da-da. And you may be out of breath at that point. That makes it easier because it's going to naturally get softer if you are. With number 5, number 5 is marked andante con moto. There is a marking for rubato, and I'll be really honest, I don't feel like I'm doing much rubato. I think there's a danger if you're playing this for the judge and you do too much rubato, because they're going to think that you don't know how to play the rhythm steady. So rubato just means that some parts can be a little bit faster and some parts might be a little bit slower. So one trick for that is in the first line, you have 2 instances where you have a quarter note on beat 3 at the end of measures. And so maybe just pull back a little bit in tempo, and then it goes right back to the regular tempo of the next measure. So something like da 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 da. Will give you a little bit of a rubato effect without totally abandoning the sense of rhythm throughout this. In the second line, I think one of the harder parts of this is getting up to the high A flat, both at the beginning of the second line and then the second measure on the fourth line. So definitely isolating that and just working those 2 places are a good strategy. What I would do personally is play the 3 notes before the A flat at the first one. So ba da da, and then just land on the A flat. And if you're having trouble finding it, in between that C and that A flat, play up the scale. Ba da da. So something like. To be able to find that. A flat again, thumb 2 and 3 on your instrument. So make sure that we're getting the correct fingering. On the second line, I think it's kind of a tricky one, just in that the notes get really low. And for horn players, notes below middle C, kind of in the 4 or 5 notes below middle C, there tends to be a problem where we don't use enough air. So you definitely want to make sure you're using enough air in these particular passages. There's also a note that you're supposed to play this affrettando and crescendoed. So affrettando is actually just getting a little bit faster, and crescendo is getting a little bit louder. So he's helping you out by putting the crescendo in, because he's making it okay for you to use more air throughout this passage. I don't know that it has to get a ton faster. Ba-da-da-da-dum, bum, ba, ba-da-da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, I think is appropriate. When you get to the rallentando right before the on tempo at the end, R-A-L-L period, that's a dramatic slowdown. So, ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. I think it's really important that you really milk that a little bit. And same thing there. If you need to work on the E flat, A flat, to work on getting that A flat, I think that's fine to do in the practice room. So, molto rid at the end, another kind of dramatic slowdown. Ba-da-dum, ba-dum. And then you have a fermata here at the end. So make sure you're just holding that for a little bit longer than you typically would. With this one especially, I feel like you should have a plan for how you're going to treat dynamics, how you're going to treat the tempo markings, and then also how you're going to breathe in this, because focusing your breathing towards playing to the breath marks, peaks and valleys, as I mentioned before, so making sure da 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 da, and then focusing where you're going to take that breath is a really important thing. So for the night before your audition experience, make sure that you're getting a good night's sleep. and that we have a good breakfast the morning of, and that you're drinking lots of water. It's really important, especially, that you feel really comfortable as much as possible with your audition experience. You definitely want to give it your best shot. Just keep in mind that you can only control what you do. You can't control anyone else. So just focus on playing your personal best, and then let the chips fall where they may. That's the really important thing here. Do your best job, and hopefully you'll have the best possible audition experience you can. So thank you for finding this video. I hope this provides you with some useful information. If you would like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to hear from you. My email is alex.manners@my.gcu.edu. Thanks so much for watching, and best of luck with your audition experience.